No doubt you heard Hamas attacked Israel, unprovoked, unannounced. Benjamin Netanyahu claiming Israel is now at war, and there seems to be a little bit of a war inside of evangelical Christianity about our attitude toward Israel. Should we be sad about it? Do we even care about Israel? Might I take us on a bit of a history tour to try to understand why it is some evangelicals, they are indeed interested and sad about the events in Israel, while others are like, well, yeah, it's a tragedy, but it doesn't have any eschatological implications. That's really the issue. That's the distinguishing theology between those who have a keen interest in Israel and those who don't. Please note, both parties, we're talking about genuine believers here, not looking to pick an eschatological fight, looking to study our attitude toward Israel. And there is a theology that will help us do that perhaps more than any other. And that is an understanding of, well, same word, once negated, supersessionism. Has the church superseded? Has the church replaced Israel? Or is God dealing with the world in different, I'll say it, dispensations? That doesn't mean you have to buy into dispensationalism whole cloth, but that he's been dealing with the world in different eras, and he's not done with Israel for many reasons. Supersessionism versus non-supersessionism. If you are not familiar with the terms, here is a little bit of a cursor. My thanks to one Tom Hammond for assembling this. Supersessionism holds that national ethnic Israel has either forfeited or completed her status and role as the chosen people of God. We are, not them. Therefore, national ethnic Israel will never again play a unique part in God's prophetic plans apart from those of the church. Now, please note, as we're going to hear, there are degrees of supersessionists. There isn't total harmony on these issues, which should be pretty obvious. I'll state it nevertheless. Should promote a little bit of eschatological humility. I'm persuaded of my position, but people who are not idiots have different takes on some of these eschatological issues, simply trying to describe the two general camps, and then we'll take a historical look to see what have people who have been both post-mill, pre-trib, amillennial, said about the nation of Israel and its promises. Supersessionism holds the church is now the true spiritual Israel. The church has permanently replaced or superseded national ethnic Israel as the people of God. Israel, the church, now synonyms, according to the secessionist view. And all unfulfilled Old Testament prophecies fulfilled in the church. And I think that that's the area that I would point your attention to. Old Testament prophecies toward Israel. It sure seems that Old Testament people understood God's promises to them, Jewish people living in a Jewish zip code. Supersessionism would say, yeah, but now those things are actually fulfilled in the church. And so you have to make the case biblically that somehow, and supersessionists do, and please note, if you're a supersessionist, brother, sister, we disagree, but we're not enemies. We're trying to sort through a complicated subject. You've got to make the case that somehow God kind of transferred those promises to the church, would seem to require something rather explicit. Nevertheless, here's the non-supersessionist position. National ethnic Israel has not permanently forfeited her unique status as the people of God. It still has a unique role in God's prophetic plans. That means Israel and the church, they're separate entities. For me, the biggest issue in this, because I get it, I see the supersessionist arguments. I get it. I see it. It's fidelity in our hermeneutic. How we read the Bible. Are we going to do it spiritually? Are we going to do it allegorically? Or are we going to consistently practice a grammatical, historical hermeneutic? Because for my money, when you do, non-supersessionism is the only view that makes sense, to me at least. Finally, non-supersessionism holds that national, ethnic, believing Israel will one day be both saved and restored. It doesn't mean every Jewish person will be saved. And national, ethnic Israel will be replanted as a literal kingdom in the land that was promised to her specifically. Now, please note again, there are varying shades of supersessionists: punitive, economic, structural. There's variance, and some might find themselves in one, two, or all three of those camps. All three types of supersessionism can take one of two positions. Either Israel, done. It's the church, a much stronger ethnic nation, no future, no salvation, no restoration. And then you've got moderate supersessionism, which basically states, no, there's still some promises for Israel. And that is where we take a look at a list assembled by Phil Layton, noted theologians in history who believed in a future conversion of national ethnic Israel. This is not to settle a debate on eschatology, but this is to encourage us to watch the news and realize there's something bigger going on than just war. There is a plan for Israel. Ian Murray, he says, from the first quarter of the 17th century, belief in a future conversion of the Jews became commonplace among the English Puritans. William Perkins, he was a Puritan writer. He wrote a lot, claiming there's still a plan. Now, again, please note, because there are some supersessionists who would cite these guys to say, see, they believed in a form of supersessionism. I get that. But the case that I'm trying to make is that they still believe there's a future for Israel. Dutch Reformed theologians in the 17th century believed in a future salvation of the Jews. J.C. Ryle, one of my favorite Puritans, I believe that the literal sense of the Old Testament prophecies has been far too much neglected by the churches and is far too much neglected at the present day, and that under the mistaken system of spiritualizing and accommodating biblical language, Christians have too often completely missed its meaning. Jonathan Edwards believed in a plan for Israel. One Charles Haddon Spurgeon believed in a plan for Israel. John Calvin, I get it, you can use him for other means, but he did believe that there was a future for Israel. Charles Hodge, John Murray, the Reformation Study Bible, R.C. Sproul, Geneva Study Bible, Matthew Henry, John Gill, John Newton, Mr. Amazing Grace, the larger Westminster Confession, John Owen, Cotton Mather, Robert Murray, McShane, Richard Sibbs, Puritan, Increase Mather, Puritan, Thomas Goodwin, Puritan, Thomas Boston. The conclusion of the matter, these quotes from non-dispensational writers should be more than sufficient to show that a future salvation for ethnic or national Israel was not invented by 19th century dispensationalism. And so it is. The evangelical attitude toward Israel, well, we can certainly quibble over some of the finer points. Our hearts should be broken for the nation and the people of Israel. Ultrasounds, still the number one tool used by Preborn to encourage women to choose life. But so much more happens at a Preborn network clinic. Provisions, counseling, instruction, spiritual needs met, and even prayer. Would you please consider partnering with Preborn network of clinics at preborn.org/wretched, preborn.org/wretched.